Ever since the discovery of Lady Plaga's gruesome murder scene, found in the opening moments of Resident Evil 4, fans have speculated at the possibility of infighting between the cult members and theorized motives behind Lady Plaga's death, but no one has ever really looked into the matter. Besides a few content creators and fans pointing out the obvious, the piles of dead gonads rotting on the farm, there haven't really been any new leads or discoveries made in the case for nearly 2 decades. Since we're only months away from the real Resident Evil 4 coming out next March, I figured now would be a perfect time to reopen this cold case. So get ready for some new shocking discoveries, because I actually put the work in on this one. I played through the entirety of Resident Evil 4 and Separate Ways. I didn't touch that Assignment Ada shit since it's non-canon, but I did study every document, no matter how meaningless or unrelated it might seem. I know when and where every character was and what they were and weren't doing at certain times. And one more thing before I get started. Don't come at me with any information found from the books, movies, and hentai. All my findings are made in this game, and this game alone. I don't know what Lady Plaga did in the comics to get face forked, but we're not going to cover that here. And I will not be using any information from any fan wiki sites. They don't cite their sources and mostly live in a fantasy world of Resident Evil make-believe. So with that, let's crack this cold case open and check out the known facts. Lady Plaga is a lady. At least, I assume she is. She was discovered pinned to the interior wall of the empty shack just before the bridge to the village. It's unknown if the pitchfork used to kill her was her own or not, but it's not uncommon to see these handmaidens wielding these pitchforks. One of the first things I noticed right away that no one's ever acknowledged before is the fact that she's wearing a unique outfit not found in the rest of the game. Her design is very similar to the blue dress bitches, but the color of her dress, bloodstains, and face are slightly different. On the exterior of the shack, you can see she was impaled with such force that the blood can be seen bleeding through to the outside. I also noted that she's pinned at a height that would be difficult for a lone gonad to accomplish. If this was done by a gang of gonads, then what was their motive? We've never actually seen the villagers intentionally kill one another. Sure, they make a lot of fatal mistakes, accidentally fucking up their faces, and the mishandling of El Gigante that led to multiple deaths on their part, but we never really witnessed any directed acts of violence towards one another, at least not caught in the act. All the evidence around the village, castle, and prison island suggest otherwise. So, let's examine all the other bodies first. At the very first house, there is a box filled with human skulls, as well as a fireplace that has some human remains. At first glance, you can easily tell that these aren't the skulls of the children that died from the experimental jab when Sadler arrived on scene. That happened years ago, maybe even a decade. It's unknown, but these skulls appear to be adult skulls, and they still have maggots feeding on them. They could be the remains of lost tourists and visitors, but if that were the case, where are their missing cars? There are no other vehicles pushed into the river, no evidence of modern gear or personal belongings, though the Ganado do burn a lot of people, so maybe all the evidence is just incinerated. At the farm, we find that wagon overflowing with dead gonads. At first I was thinking this could be all the dudes Leon or Ada killed in a previous act, but they can't be. Thanks to the constructed timeline of events, I discovered that Ada arrives on scene and received her first objective just minutes after Leon had. She never even enters the farm area until after Leon.
Ring the church bell. That should quiet them down for a while.
And because she rings the bell, saving Leon from the village attack, every Ganado in the area dropped what they're doing to go play bingo, meaning no one was available to stack these village bodies and cart them to the farm before Leon got there. Whoever did this did the village a favor, because the cock-to-pussy ratio was really out of whack.
How rude!
Oh, excuse me, your highness.
On a side note, going back to my observation I made about there being no updated gear or modern technology left behind by hikers and tourists, I just want to point out that Mendez's goon is carrying a shiny new tranq rifle that really seems out of place for a villager to be using, and never again do we see villagers using firearms. But, strangely enough, Mendez's character model is riddled with bullet holes. It's a crime scene in and of itself, and who was shooting him? Couldn't have been from Ada before Leon's arrival. We've already established that she showed up on scene with Leon. Plus, if she had shot him, then Mendez wouldn't even be questioning the possibility of a third party's involvement. So, could this be proof? that there's actually gonad-on-gonad violence going down. I believe we have more than enough evidence to suggest that someone in this community is committing these crimes, but why? Many people have questioned if Lady Plaga was a spy or not, or a non-believer, someone who refused the injection, so I'll start by addressing the spy theory. If you're looking for evidence that there are moves being made against the Los Illuminados from within, you need only look at Sadler and Mendez's relationship. According to the documents, these two leaders have never seen anything eye to eye. Mendez questions Sadler's leadership and his stupid decisions to keep the American alive, even advises against keeping him locked up with Luis, fearing the damage the two could do if they managed to escape. And don't forget, it was Sadler who gave Krauser a dominant Plaga when he knew he was a double agent from the start, and he did this all without telling Chief Mendez, and we know he wasn't informed because he questioned if a third party was involved well after Sadler had involved a third party. And he obviously wasn't told about Leon's infection when he believed Leon would be executed. There's also the fact that Mendez captures Ada but doesn't kill her and doesn't report it to Sadler. If Mendez had just killed anyone, or if Sadler had listened to any of Mendez's concerns, they'd probably both be running America right now, and they'd probably be running it a hell of a whole lot better than Biden's handlers are.
What a stupid son of a bitch.
But I gotta say, the most suspicious thing I discovered while looking for spies came from these three amigos on top of this hill next to the crime scene. Once they spot Leon, a gonad will shout in Mexican, "An outsider, warn the others." Now, besides the obvious fact that I don't think a Mexican would ever care about another foreigner coming into their territory, what makes this line so significant is the fact that these guys don't actually warn anyone. Everyone is just going about their day, from area to area. What exactly were these guys doing up there? Why were they off the trail? Were they avoiding the traps? So, with all these new circumstantial findings, I believe the gonads could be in a sort of Cold War that's about to heat up. And speaking of heat, I did a second examination of the crime scene in New Game Plus. This way, I was able to equip the thermal scope, and you'll be surprised at what I found. Lady Plaga's corpse has gone cold. This means she could have died 12 hours prior and no earlier. As far as I know, no one's ever reported this finding. So, with this new forensic tool in hand, I immediately ran to the pile of dead gonads to check their heat signatures. I assumed it'd be just as cold as Lady Plaga's lifeless body, but I wanted to be thorough. And to my surprise, this pile was as warm as ground zero 6 months later. Meaning, these bodies were still pretty warm. These bodies died anywhere from minutes to hours before Leon's arrival. So, with that, I was on a mission. I reset the game to check the temperatures of the non-infected individuals. Leon's two police escorts give off no heat signatures. They're either just as dead as Lady Plaga, or this scope really was designed to find parasitic heat signatures. So, I tested it on Ashley, knowing she's infected, and holy shit, she's gotta be having a hot flash or something, or that parasite's been getting busy inside her. I also found this prisoner's cold, uninfected body locked away in Salazar's prison. And even after all that, with all these new clues and discoveries I made, nothing compared to this new detail I discovered. After I was reviewing my footage for this video, I noticed that the farmer's pitchforks were ridiculously long. They appeared too long for anyone to use within that tight space of the shack. So, I returned to the scene once more and discovered that Lady Plaga's pitchfork has indeed been snapped in half. This mystery is almost 20 years old now, and not a single person to my knowledge has reported on this finding. For a murderer to be able to do this, to break this handle and then lift her ass up and impale her to the wall, the killer would have to be super strong. Like, stronger than my dad. Like, Mendez strong or Verdugo strong. But, thanks to my investigation, I can confidently say that neither of these suspects had anything to do with her death. Verdugo would never leave Salazar's side, unless ordered, and Salazar doesn't have the motive to kill her. But also, Verdugo has his own weapon, plus he's got that gut-busting alien tail. He doesn't need no pitchfork. And as for Mendez, I can say with 100% certainty that he had nothing to do with this either. After reading the file on the warehouse ambush, you know, the one set for Leon just below the ski lift, we learned that this shack is used to enlighten betrayers. If Mendez had any reason to believe Lady Plaga was a betrayer, like a spy, he would have dragged her ass down here. Ada, Leon, and Luis aren't considered betrayers to the faith because they're outsiders, non-believers. Which brings me to my next point in clearing Mendez as the killer. In this game, we witness Mendez capture all three of these characters, and not once does he kill them on sight. He wouldn't even kill Leon until Leon was inside the sacred shack. Also, since we're covering all the leaders, I don't think it was Sadler either. Even though he's been known to make appearances down in the village, I don't think he'd touch a pitchfork, especially when he's got that little Plaga pecker poker that he could just kill her with at any time. So, now that the usual suspects are ruled out, I decided to search for that missing pitchfork handle. A ridiculous quest, I know, but I discovered that for every wagon in the village, there's a stack of hay and a pitchforker forking the shit out of it. Which makes this empty, unattended wagon stand out from all the rest. Where's this guy's pitchfork? Also, I see that there's seating for two, so where's his dinner guest gone? I really think it's possible that this guy had something to do with her murder, though I doubt his ability to pin her up at that height. Maybe she lived in this room upstairs that we don't have access to. Maybe she was a long-lost relative that didn't know what she was returning home to. Or maybe she was killed for not wearing the proper gang colors. Either way, I don't think we'll know the answer from just this game alone. Maybe the remake will shed some light on this mystery, but I wouldn't be surprised if Capcom pussed out and removed it like they removed the ballistics. And before we wrap this up, I just want to say, after everything discovered and presented here, my own personal belief is that these three Hilltop guys had something to do with her murder. They avoided the traps, they failed to save the lives of their friends, and like most killers, they returned to the scene of the crime. Plus, combined, they have the strength to hold her up while she's getting impaled. And I do believe it was the victim's pitchfork, and that she used it in self-defense against her attackers, resulting in the pitchfork breaking in half. Though the whereabouts on the missing handle piece remain a mystery, the only place I could think of it being is shoved up her ass, if you know what I mean. And I don't really feel like busting out my VR just to look under her dress. Another thing I wonder is if she managed to do damage to her assailants. Everyone in the village, for the most part, looks like shit, but there is one shittily looking character who stands out from the rest. This rogue gonad, who seems to be working against the cult's best interests. If he had in fact actually succeeded in killing Luis, then the cult would have never retrieved the sample they needed. And just look at this guy. He's bleeding from his face, his mouth, and his wounds are all on his left side, consistent with the right-handed person defending themselves. He's also wielding a weapon that would cut right through the pitchfork handle. And he could be working with that Hilltop gang. Maybe he's the one they warned about Leon's presence. And you'll also notice he's using a castle weapon. Did he take that from someone else he murdered? We'll never know for sure, but thanks to me, we now have a lot more information and really narrowed down the list of suspects. Seriously, besides these 5 gonads, it's between the merchant, Luis, and Krauser who could have killed her. And we know that the merchant plays both sides, so there's really no motive for him to kill her. As far as I know, Krauser never steps foot off Prison Island. As for Luis though, he does objectify women and he admits to being pretty bad with the ladies.
I have to go back and get it.
Let me come with you.
No, you stay here with Leon. He is better with the ladies, I'm sure.
And that's it. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you found it informative. Please let me know your theories down in the comments as to what happened to Lady Plaga. If she's ever been mentioned in any comics or novels, I'm curious as to what their version of events is, if any. Please leave a comment if you have any further information on the case. Oh yeah, and before I forget, thank you to all my RE-tards out there. Thank you Kyle, Marco, Julia, E13, Brian, Experiments, and Turtle Talk for supporting the channel. And did I say Mark? Yeah, Mark. And if anyone else out there would like to show their support and become a member, the Patreon link's in the description below. Thanks. Bye. Okay. We're good. Let's do it. Okay. Yep, it's black. Capcom must have cut out all the goods down here. Let's see. Nothing. Yeah, no pitchfork handle, nothing down here.